Hi there, and welcome back to All About Employment by DC Recruiting. My name's Dave, your host, and today on episode 10, season 2, I would like to talk about a little bit more about common interview questions. The source for this is an article that I read, and I'm going to go through some of the points on here. Some of it I agree with, some of it I don't. Just going to add some of my own commentary to these. You can take it for what it is. There's a list of questions here. I'll just go through them one at a time here, and we'll see what we can come up with. I'm just going to get right into it. And again, these are mostly behavioral questions. They're common questions. I'm not going too far off the path and going into other types and categories and that. This is just the most common ones. So let's get right into it, like I say. So the first one, right off the bat, is the tell me about yourself. Now, I have an entire episode devoted to this question, so I'm not really going to go into this one too much here, but it is a very common one, and it is one that makes people uncomfortable a lot. So the suggestions here in this article are to have an overview of your current position and then focus on highlights from your background. Sure. It mentions hobbies too. Like I'm not a huge fan of going into hobbies too much in a tell me about yourself question. I look at it more of a you're telling a story. You're going to hear me say that a lot when I talk about interviewing, about telling stories, but I really do believe in this question. You're telling a professional story. If you want to weave in some personal stuff, that's fine, but you're telling a story about your work history that ends up with the conclusion you in the seat talking to the employer. So that's the kind of example or the kind of answer that I would want to hear as an employer. So some employers really want to dig in and get a lot of personal information. They want it to be all personal. You'll start off talking about your profession, like, no, what makes you you? And, it's just, if you have an interviewer like that, then, you have to be prepared for it. And do have some personal stuff, attributes ready. But just, if you're not comfortable going into that, then, don't delve too far into it. And please keep in mind that a lot of times employers don't put a lot of stock into this answer. It's an icebreaker. They just want to get to know you a little bit, and it's not going to completely ruin your interview. But like I say in my episode when I talked about this question, you can definitely it's a freebie. It's a free opportunity to talk a little bit more about your professional life and to really show how you can be prepared and deliver an answer that makes sense, and it's a story. You've put together some points, and you've been able to deliver it, and shows that you're prepared. So really, that's the most important thing about tell me about yourself. That's my opinion, right? And you can listen to my episode that I have about it. Those are just some of the highlights of stuff that I say in that one. But tell me about yourself is a very, very common first question, icebreaker, and so treat it with all the seriousness it deserves. But sometimes don't forget the employer is literally just treating it like an icebreaker, and they may not even write down what you say. And the second question that we're going to talk about is related to the first one, but it says, how would you describe yourself? It's a great question. Really what the interviewer is looking for is some extra stuff. What makes you stand out? How could you be a good fit at their organization? Whatever it should be. Now, the example that the article has here is just to say that you're hardworking. You've made sure that you've contributed to all the projects. You took every measure to make sure people were on board if you're a leader, or you've done your best as a member of a team, whatever. And to me, these are all really common things to say. What I would try to use in this scenario, if it's possible for you, I would definitely try to bring in some of your transferable skills. Like if you switched around a little bit from different sectors, a good way to work in describing yourself is to work in some transferable stuff if you have it. And definitely bring up soft skills in this section of an interview. Describing yourself as having skills is okay. That's what got you to your interview, but it's a fit question, right? So soft skills are a good thing to bring out here. Even in the example, they say that they're hardworking, and they're a team player, and that's fine. But you can add things into, like, that you're punctual, and that you are friendly, you have emotional intelligence, those kind of things. Like, you know when to back off people if they're having a bad day, or you know when to step in and see if there's anything you can do to help, right? So, I mean, that's the kind of stuff that you may want to work into how would you describe yourself question. And good segue into the what makes you unique, right? So, like, I mean, I don't know. I see these questions as being very similar. Now, what the article is saying, focus on why you're the ideal candidate, right? Well, I mean, that's what the interview is for. The whole interview is for. So I think that bringing in some anecdotes may help. I mean, even the example answer that they give, they talk about having a lot of practice taking questions from the public. If they were in a retail situation. So I mean, yeah, I mean, you can use anecdotes, but again, I still think here that the best way to make yourself sound unique is to say what different skills you bring to the workplace based on transferable skills. I mean, everyone's had a first job, right? Everyone learned a lot from their first job, and it may have had nothing to do with where you ended up. So some of the things you learned there could be different from what you do now, or are aiming to do now if you're in an interview. So yeah, bring in some of your transferable stuff and bring that up here. I mean, I really think that that'll help make you unique. I mean, not everybody could have worked in different areas you've worked. Maybe you worked in a different part of the world. Okay, so the next one we're going to talk about is why do you want to work here? So I think this is another great question because it's not saying why should we hire you. It's why do you want to work there? It makes you think a little bit more. But again, these are all things you would really hash out before your interview, of course, part of your preparation. But it's mentioning here, how would you answer it? Doing research on their product, services, their mission, the history, and if you can get a hold of the culture of the workplace, that's what you're looking for to answer this. And again, some of the stuff is interview gold. I mean, that you can use. Like if you latch on, and I've said this a million times, but I always like to use this as an example. If you learn something about the company's culture that really speaks to you, I always use the example of an activity or something outside of the work hours or something that the organization does. I mean, if you latch onto that and say that, wow, I mean, this is a great thing that your company does, whatever. Sometimes they'll say it's like, they sponsor a local soccer team or something like that. If that's something that speaks to you and you think it's great, then bring that up. Bring that up there in the why do you want to work here? Because you can say not only is this a great place to work and my skills and everything else, well, I think I'll be a great fit here. But I love the fact that you sponsor a local soccer team. I love that you do that, and it really shows that you're committed to the communities that you operate in. And it can be interview gold because it's possible that the person that's interviewing you may have had something to do with that, and to get a sort of accidental compliment for extra work that they do, and to have it be appreciated by somebody that wants to come into the company, it can really make it can unintentionally set you way far apart from a lot of other people if you say something like that, because like I say, they'll appreciate getting a compliment even if it wasn't on purpose about extra stuff that the company does. So why do you want to work here? Yes, I agree with this article when it says dig into the culture, the history, all that sort of stuff about the company, because that's really where the answer is. And actually, as a reference to where do you find this stuff, right? It may not just be straight on the internet doing like Googling the company, right? Go right back to the job ad. If you've listened to my job ads, it's the very first episode I ever did on my podcast. But if you listen to that one, there's so much good stuff that you can pull out of that preamble of a job. Sometimes you see job ads and they've got like 16 paragraphs. It seems like all this boring stuff that you don't want to read. You just want to find out how much you're going to get paid, and you want to find out where you're going to work and how the hours and the rest of it and the qualifications. Don't ignore that stuff. Don't ignore those paragraphs at the beginning, because you can pull a lot of great stuff out of there to use in a question like, why do you want to work here? Okay, let's move on. Let's move on to the next question, which is, what interests you about this role? Now, you can use the basic things. You can say the normal things like your skill matches. You think you're going to be a great fit. And you can say that the things that you need to do in the job you have experience doing, or if you don't have experience that you just finished school or something like that, then you can say say that stuff. I mean, use the hard skill kind of stuff to answer it to. But just make sure that you bring in to your answer too that the outcomes that the company is seeking are things that speak to you, that that's what interests you about the job, right? It's like, it's awesome to maybe it's an accounting job stereotypically, or accounts payable as stereotypically, maybe those things aren't very exciting to a lot of people. To accountants, great, awesome. I mean, they sit and they love doing that stuff, right? And well, they should. But if you're in that situation where you could say, listen, I like being a part of the process. When you look at those reports at the end of the month, that I know that I'm the one, or my team, we were the ones who brought this information forward. And it's nice to have that ability to have upper management, or any kind of management really, base their decisions on work that we did to show them that if you do this, this is what happens. Something like that. Any job can have that in it. Any job ad, or any role has those things in it. So that's what you're really wanting to bring forward. It's not just that you can do the job. It's that the outcomes are, they'll give you satisfaction, some kind of intrinsic value you get out of the end result of the work that you do. I want to skip forward a little bit on the list. We'll go back to a couple of the other ones, but this is an important one. I want to talk about this one. It says, why are you leaving your current job? It's a very important question, and just be very careful that you don't do a couple of things. Number one, don't trash your old company. If you're leaving because it's not a great place to work for you, or if it does fall into the sort of textbook example of a toxic workplace and you just want out, or if you got fired, don't say awful things about the old employer. Just don't do it. It's just, I've said before that a lot of companies are niche sort of environments, and everybody knows everybody sometimes. So even if it's in a big city, I mean, they might know the owner of that company. And if you're saying bad things about them, then it might get back to them, right? So you don't want that. And if you did get fired from a job, you don't necessarily have to say you got fired. You just say it wasn't a good fit. It wasn't a good fit for me. Wasn't a good fit for the company. All around, it wasn't a great experience. And it was just time to move. It's just time to move on. Or on the other side of that same coin, if you quit the job, right? If you just ended up quitting, then you can say something like, well, I got everything I could out of that environment. I gave them everything I had, and it was just, it wasn't going to be a forever place for me. I wanted it to be, but it didn't turn out that way. So it was time to move on. So that's why I'm looking for work again. So those are two kind of nice ways to say that you just wanted out of your job. Or if you had some help, leaving your job if you were fired. So you don't have to be, it doesn't have to be a completely negative answer. And of course, you're going to avoid the trap of trashing your old employer. Now, the example they give in this article here is not to say, not to necessarily say what I said. And I like this. I like the examples they give too. So this is good. You can say something like that you're looking for an ability to build longer lasting and better relationships. You can say, this is the reason I took a job in this field, and I felt like at my old place I wasn't going to be able to get the most that or get the most back from what I can put in. And so at this place, I think that I'll be able to do that. So you're taking a potential negative situation, and you're putting that little bit of a positive spin on the end of it, which is great. So yeah, I would agree with that too. So whatever you would say about why you're leaving your current job, just use that little extension to say that, even though it may not be working out as well as I want at my old job, I know definitely it'll work out well here. That's why I'm here. Now, the next two on the list are what are your greatest strengths and what are your weaknesses? So again, I have devoted an entire episode just for these two questions, but I'll do a little bit of highlights here just to show, maybe contrast what I've said in my episode against what's in this article here. So the greatest strengths, it's saying share some qualities and personal attributes that relate to the role which you're interviewing for. And then if you have stories to tell about it, then be sure to share it. Now, my take on that is, now the greatest strengths is not, if you've listened to my episodes before, it's not, or it is, pardon me, I can't answer, but not a time to shine question. So you need to limit what you say here. So just a few things, and the best things to use are hard skills, because you want to use all your soft skilly kind of stuff for the why should we hire you, those kind of questions. But 2 or 3 things, that are your greatest strengths. I wouldn't automatically tell a story about each skill, because let the interviewer do that. So let the interviewer ask those follow-up questions. If they don't ask any follow-up questions and they're fine with what you say, great. But if they want to know a little bit more about it, then yes, definitely have some examples ready to be able to share. So yeah, I mean, that's sort of a little bit of a difference of how I would handle it as opposed to how this article is doing it. And then quickly, and again, I do have a whole episode based on these two, so don't think I'm glossing over this stuff. These are very serious, important questions that you're going to get in your interview. So make sure that that you listen to my other episodes, because I think they're great. Now, what are your weaknesses? So you're not going to get weaknesses. Like I always, whenever I see it worded like this in an article or something like that, it's never going to be weaknesses. It's going to be your weakness. And then, of course, there's all kinds of different ways to ask these questions. What would one of your supervisors say that was your greatest weakness? Whatever. So it's not going to be weaknesses. And there are other ways to ask it, like I said. Now, this article says that being able to share a weakness shows that you're self-aware. Very true. I totally agree with that. And it says to be honest about how you work through the challenging experience. And then it says, if possible, include how you've improved on these or these weaknesses, whatever, weakness or weaknesses over time. Let's just go with my scenario here where it's 1, right? Now, just very succinctly, the biggest piece of advice I give people about talking about your weaknesses is to pick one, a hard skill that is not related to the job, because it offers you a chance to say how you would improve, right? Sometimes people aren't self-aware enough to know how they've improved, how they, over time. Maybe it happened so subtly that they didn't realize that they had improved, something like that. But if you say, like, I'll give the example I've always given, and I'm an HR trained person, and I do not like accounting. And no offense to accountants, you're awesome, we need you, because people like me don't like doing accounting. But I can do it, I'm just not very good at it, right? So you can, I would say, if I was in an HR interview, it's like, maybe a weakness that I can think of is with having to do with accounting. So I never really appreciated it that much, and I'm not very good at it. But and make sure that you say that it's not like you want to be an accountant, but just say something like, well, I think it would be a good thing if I can get some training to know how my role fits in with theirs, because I don't like making extra work on people. So this is basically exactly what I said in my other podcast episode. But yeah, so I don't like making extra work on people. So if there's time when I'm being trained, if I can spend some time with the accounting department to know how my role fits in with theirs, I think it would be a good thing for everybody, just so that I don't make extra work on people, and I can make things easier on them down the road. Something like that, you know what I mean? So, and then the other part of the weakness question, of course, is to put that positive spin on the end. Whenever you say something negative about you or yourself or a work experience or anything, always put a positive spin on it. So now, and the reason you pick that hard skill is because you don't want to be in the customer service maybe area and say, oh God, people drive me nuts. I have a hard time dealing with really stressful stuff when there's 2, 3, even 4 people all talking to me at the same time. Right? If you say something like that, then where do you go with it? You have nothing to say. You can, well, I'm working on that somehow, but you can't say how, right? If I say I'm poor at accounting, and I say I want to understand how my role fits in with theirs, it's a little indirect positive spin on it. You're not saying, well, I want to learn exactly how to be an accountant, and whatever. They have accountants, so you as the HR person don't have to do it. But knowing how your role fits in with theirs is that positive spin. So anyway, listen to my episode on the weakness question if you want to know more. But what they say in this article I think is good. So the next two are similar but not the same. I'm going to skip forward, and I'm going to do the one about where do you see yourself in 5 years? And I love that question. And sometimes people fall into a trap with that question because they automatically think that the employer wants to say that you want to be, you want to climb the ladder and be the CEO one day. And that's not necessarily what they want. Some companies just, they want worker bees. They want people to come in and do a great job, and they want people to, you know, to learn other roles, to be able to do other things. But, they're not necessarily looking for every single person that walks in there to be a leader. I mean, if that's what you want, then say so. Fine, whatever. Say that, I want to learn. I want to be really great at my role. I want to be able to train people. And I think, yeah, in 5 years, I wouldn't mind taking a step up to management if the opportunity is there. Nothing wrong with saying that. But just don't always assume that the interviewer wants to hear that. Especially if it's not true. Like if you want to be a worker bee, if you just want to be a person that goes in, hangs their hat on the hook and works, does a great job, and is a good good fit and a good influence and teacher, maybe like indirectly to other people that come in, then great. I mean that's awesome. Companies like having that person around that is a good example for new employees. And if that's what you want to do, then that's great. And they also want people that are going to stay. Either way, saying that you want to be management or that you just want to be a worker bee, the fact that you're even bringing up that you still want to be there in 5 years is a big win. Because the way the labor market is today, of course, I mean, it's like 2 years and you're out. I see it all the time as a recruiter where people spend a couple of years, especially skilled trades is a good example. They'll go do their apprenticeship and then they'll move on somewhere else, which drives some companies crazy, but at least they got like 2 or 3 years out of the person before they moved on. But saying that you want to be there, be somewhere for 5 years will definitely, what I'm trying to say is if you have a good answer and you're visualizing yourself being there in 5 years without knowing it, you've already made a good point. The example that they give in the article here is really good. It says in 5 years, I'd like to be an industry expert in my field and be able to mentor students and entry level people alike. And I feel like I will be able to grow with this company to achieve my goals. I mean, that's a great example, or a great example. Perfect. I mean, that's exactly what I as a counselor, when I was an employment counselor, and even as a recruiter when I'm working with job seekers. I mean, yeah, that's definitely something I would tell them to say. I'm gonna leave it at that for the where do you see yourself in 5 years question. I think the example they gave in this article was excellent, and do that, and use a couple of other things that I said too. So let's move on to, I guess we're going back a bit. The one before that was, what are your goals for the future? It's related to where do you see yourself in 5 years. Really a way to answer that is just to just compare your goals to the core values of the company, right? So just say that I would say something like, well, my goals are to help this company achieve their goals. I mean, I was attracted to this job because of the things that you want to achieve, and I mean that I want to use my expertise to help this company achieve their goals. Sorry, can't talk right now, but to achieve their goals. So I mean that's really what I would say. I mean, it does sound like you're kissing up to them a little bit, but that's really the best answer to give. You don't want to go off on a tangent and say things completely opposite. Like you don't want to go in your interview and say, well, I've noticed that my goals are pretty different from this company, so I'm going to spend the next few years trying to change things around. No employer really wants to hear that. I mean, you can do that when you get in there. Like if you think it's a good organization that will let your opinion be heard and be able to not force, that's a bad word to use, but have some change happen. Fine. But sitting in your interview, identifying yourself as a destabilizing boat rocker kind of person may not be a great strategy to achieve the job. Once you get in there and you work with the team and you see it that that change needs to happen, then fine. But I wouldn't do that at your interview. My opinion, of course. Okay, so why should we hire you? Wow. I mean, that is your time to shine question. Now, in the article, they say it's address the skills and experience you offer and why you're a good fit with your prospective employee's culture. It doesn't really say how to do that, But any of the hard skills that you didn't bring out, any of the transferable skills that you had that you didn't bring out, all of your soft skills, and then if you remember back to when we were talking about the one question about where is it here? What interests you about this role? Remember, I was talking about, if you've seen something in the company and you bring it. If you haven't had a chance, what I'm saying is, if you haven't had a chance to do that, then do it when they ask you the why should we hire you, or if there's any other things in the company culture that you like. If you brought something up before and there's something else, then bring it up again there, because that's what they want. That's what they want to hear. Why should we hire you? They want you to say things like, not only am I a great fit, but this sounds like an awesome place to work. I want to be here. That's again, that's the interview gold that you can pull out of this. So again, you really do have to put some thought into it, though. It's a time to shine question, but it's something that you should really, you have to research it, right? Just like most of the other ones, but you need to really see what it is about the company that you really like, so that you can tell them that. And also, the transferable skills really can set you apart too. If you've done a lot of things in other environments, or even, again, for those folks that haven't had a lot of work experience, if you started a program in school but ended up moving to something else, but you have a whole list of skills that you can use, great. Or if you were a student and you had a customer service job, but you're not going into customer service, you can say, well, not only can I do all the technical stuff for this job, but when I was in university or college or whatever, I worked in the bookstore, or I worked whatever. I did a lot of customer service, so I know how to handle people when they get upset, and I have recent experience doing that. So just because you don't have a lot of experience doesn't mean it's a total hindrance to you. That's about all I wanted to say about the why should we hire you. It is a very important question. It is time to shine. It's usually close to the end of the interview, and that's kind of the challenge about that question, really. I guess I do have one more thing to say about it. The challenge for that question is that you might have, if you haven't answered some of the other questions properly, for example, the strengths and weaknesses, or the strengths especially, if you've gone and gone on and on and on too much in that question, which is not technically supposed to be a time to shine question, and you haven't saved enough ammunition, then you're going to struggle to answer this one at the end, because you're just going to be referring back to things that you've already said. And it's nice to have fresh things to say when you answer that question. Okay, that's all I'm going to say about it now. And then the last thing on here is there's more questions than this in this article, but these are the ones that I'm focusing on for now. It says, do you have questions for us? Well, you should always have questions for the employer. Bar none, always have questions for the employer. So it can be things that you picked up along the way in the interview, right? Jot some questions down if they say something, or if they don't say something that you want to know, obviously. But always have some prepared to go in with. And, I always loved, just as an example, and actually they have it here. Maybe they heard my other episode. But I love asking the employer why they love working for the company. Oh, it's a great question. Great question to ask them, because they're asking. I mean, they spend the whole time of the interview asking you about why you want to work there. Ask them why they like working there. And it can be very telling, because if they can't think of one thing that they love about their job, then I'm not saying don't take the job, but I'm just saying maybe the culture isn't exactly how they're trying to present it, or whatever, right? I would say definitely ask that question. I mean, there's all kinds of examples of things you can ask. You can ask things like if it's more of a trade or whatever, you can say, do I need my own tools? Do I have to have any of my own safety stuff? What are the rules for the company vehicles? If I'm the candidate you pick for the job, anything like that. I mean, there's lots of things you can ask. The worst thing you can do, though, is ask nothing. Be like, no, I'm all good. You explained everything, because they probably didn't. Don't be shy. Write some stuff down going in, and then try to pick things up along the way. And so it's super important to have questions for the employer, because an interview isn't just, you're interviewing the employer too, and that's your opportunity to do it. You're interviewing them, they're interviewing you. You're both trying to see whether it's going to be a good fit. So I think I'm going to stop there for today. Hope everybody has a great day. And if you are job searching, hope you find that dream job soon. And until next time.